what do you think the law should include according to you? If you can mute yourself, or you can put your responses on chat. I just told you the purpose and maybe the objective of the law and the requirement why it was, but according to you, what it should definitely be including. Any thoughts?
Please, anybody wants to answer this question, please go ahead. What do you think the law should provide? You're talking in terms of maintenance, Sana?
I'm talking in terms of anything which you think the law should provide. It need not restricted be for maintenance. Yeah.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Hello, my name is Lalita Kandaswamy. My question is, usually.
Sorry, is it just me, or I can't hear Lalita?
We can't hear you, Lalita. Lalita, we can't hear you. Maybe her Wi-Fi is not working properly. Hello, Lalita. Anybody else would like to answer while we are waiting for her? Hello. Okay, I think probably her Wi-Fi has gone off. Anybody else? Anybody else? Please would like to, what do you think the law should provide for senior citizens?
So maintenance is already something. Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, maintenance, because in our country, there is no, what shall I say, there is no recourse if the state doesn't take care of the senior citizens like it does in welfare countries, but which actually should happen. And many senior citizens are left homeless, or have a very small pension, or have no financial support, or are abandoned by their children. Or simply, so that is actually the situation, that the state is not taking care of us.
Right, Anita. Thank you so much for that. Anybody else would like to add something specific that you would like the law to have? You can be specific to anything, and we are in a space where we can sort of express ourselves. So please don't hold back while you're doing that. There is no right or wrong answer.
I think the law should also provide, a space where we can actually voice out concerns,
right?
And take it to conclusion. Take it to a proper conclusion. That is something that
a proper conclusion being. Sorry, Joyce, your voice is a bit faint. It keeps on coming and going. But what I understood was that
in terms of if there's something that's not going right. They should be able to voice it out and see to it that it's taken up and a proper resolution is there.
Sure. Okay. Thanks, Joyce. That's important as well. Anybody else? Asha says on the chat that yes, they must support us. They being, I'm assuming, the state government. I'm guessing. Yes, please go ahead if anybody else would like to also come in. Any specific things that you think the law should provide? So far we have maintenance, some welfare things to ensure that we are on the right side. Also, as Joyce mentioned, that where we can sort of get something out of it, whatever we want in terms of support. Somebody where we can voice out our concerns. Right.
I would like to join. My name Lalita. I started speaking, then my connection went off. I don't know how much of it you got. My point was that the legal language uses terms which we ordinary people do not exactly understand. So if there is some access where we understand what the legal information tells us, very often they use the terms which we don't understand, and that the language should be simple and the procedure should be simple for us to use it.
Right. I think that's a very good point, Lalita. Thank you so much for putting it out. And I would want to highlight that fact as well, that to what extent does it simplify? The law is one part of it, but it should not be like a legal jargon. It should not be like an added burden. Already you're facing whatever you're facing, and then the law should not be something just adding on to that stress element, right? So I think completely with you there as well, Lalita. Anybody else would like to pitch in before we move on?
Hi, audible. I want to ask something.
Yes, Emma, go ahead.
Hi. So basically, don't take me wrong, but right in the beginning, I want to ask something, that it is always assumed that parents looked after the children very well now, and now it is turn of the children to look after the parents. But it is also possible in some cases that parents did not look after the children properly. For okay, either they were having some bad habits or drinking or whatever. And people, children stood on their own and fought and are now grown up. In that case, also, as a social responsibility, yes, they still go ahead and look after the parents. But is law says that whatever may be the situation, children must look after the parents?
Right.
I mean, I find rude, but
I will answer that, Hima. That's a good question. What I've understood, sorry, I don't know whether it's your network or mine, but there was a lot of fade in terms of your fade. It was fading off and on. But what I understood from your question was that is it obligatory for the children to look after their parents? Is that what your question was? Shortly put?
especially when the parents did not look after the children well.
Okay.
Looked after the family only because now they are old. Are children supposed to look after them still, or any law is there for kind of situation also?
Sorry, is it just me or I'm not? Her voice is, yeah, it's not audible. Hima, is it okay if you put your your question on chat, please, because your voice is something which is, it's fading for all of us.
Yeah, put it in the chat box, please. Put your question in the chat box. Yeah.
I think it's a very interesting question. I think what I gathered was that what if the parents themselves have not taken care of the children, then is it obligatory for the children to take care of them? So, interesting question. All right. I may be wrong. That's what I understood. Any other thoughts on what the law should be?
I wanted to ask something.
Sure.
Yeah. Most of the time, the senior lady citizen, if she's employed, it's fine. If she's not employed, she's left in the lurch if there's, property left and all that. So can there be a simpler system through which
I think you went on mute.
Yeah. No, I got unmuted in between. Yeah. There should be a simpler system for getting the, lady senior citizen out of the problem. There should be a forum to take care of their needs. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So is there a forum to take care of their needs, to ensure that, they can voice out and, sort of, yes. Okay. Fair enough. Thank you. Anybody
thank
else?
you, Sana.
Just,
thank you, Sana.
Hello?
Yeah, I want to say something. Can I?
Lalita, can we just hold on? Uma can speak and maybe I can invite you.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Uma, please go ahead.
Yeah, good evening. I just wanted to know about this gift deed. Sometimes like if you have 2 floors, 3 floors, whatever it is, or a property, so then you make a gift deed for the kids, right? So when you give a gift deed, are they also allowed to sell it without your knowledge? If you're just on the basis of a gift deed, it doesn't need the parents' consent at all?
Sure. So Uma, I will answer this question because there is a specific provision in this law itself on this facet. But yes, to answer, let me just hold on to this question. Is that okay if I answer it as and when I proceed about the law?
Not an issue, not an issue.
Thank you.
So I was just thinking if there is a law to, provide safety, because we do give gift deed and then it just simply proposes.
Right.
But in the long run, can it be used to sell off the property? That's all.
Sure. So I think, Uma, I will definitely answer this question. I've made a note of it and I will be, when I come to that point, I'll be elaborating on your question.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Lalita, please go ahead.
Yes, my other query, Sana, is can there be this through Ayavika's help how to make our will? We don't know how to make a will, and what as per the law, is there some way somebody can help us to make the will?
Okay,
so
Lalita,
I think this.
Yeah, 1 sec, Sana. Lalita, what you can do is you can WhatsApp us. See in the chat box.
Last time you
can WhatsApp this. See, you can see this number. I have just put it. You can WhatsApp on this number if you require help in making your will, and we will provide you with services. At least the first consultation is free. So please go ahead
Okay.
and call us, WhatsApp us on this number, and somebody will get in touch with you. So anybody wants any help in making a will, you can WhatsApp us on this number. Okay? Is that okay, Lalita?
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, you can go ahead, Sanko.
All right. So I think I will move ahead. I think these are very, very good responses. Thank you so much for those responses about what are your thoughts that the law should include. And well, let me just start off with sort of stating the obvious in a way, as well as also the basis in which on why the law is the way it is. I'll tell the name of the law is Maintenance and Welfare of Senior Citizens. It's a law of 2007. And there were also, in terms of, there were very issues that the lawmakers sort of went into when it came to social isolation, a lack of accessibilities to basics like food, health, medical facilities, inadequate housing facilities, where sometimes, unfortunately, the senior citizens become, or the parents become, a burden. And in a city like Bombay, I can take an example of city like Bombay because I'm from here, is that the house is already very small, so the most common excuse is that we do not have any place to keep our elderly in, and it's better to just put them somewhere else where they'll be better taken care of. Again, there is no right and wrong to this, but most of the times it's against the will of the elderly as well. Of course, I think discrimination and abandonment is something that I've already spoken about. And what about the assistance, like the access part of it? One is knowing, but the second part is accessing. Does the law make any sort of way for accessing of the provision that it already has? And does that also mean that additional legal burden on the senior citizens, right? The legal burden does not only entail actually going to a particular forum, but also incurring expenditure for going to that forum, right? It is right from the logistical expenditure of maybe filing an application to the expenditure of maybe hiring a lawyer and then going and attending each and every hearing of that forum when and that happens. And that is a perception of courts in our country, right? Nobody wants to willingly go to a court setup. In fact, there's this whole saying that if you're lucky in your lifetime, you'll never see the face of a police or a court. That makes me quite wary as a litigation lawyer myself, but nonetheless, it's always looked down upon. It's always like demonized in a way, right? There are very legit reasons for that as well, but the fact remains that had there not been a law, had there not been a forum, then probably these atrocities would continue. And so there's a double-edged sword. The endeavor is to make it better, to make it more accessible, and to spread more awareness about the accessibility and ways of and means of going about it. So if I have to highlight the main features of Maintenance and Welfare of Parents and Senior Citizens Act of 2007, there are some of the features, right? It makes it legally obligatory, and that this may sort of kind of answer Hima's question as well. It makes it legally obliging in a way for adult children and heirs. And I'll come and elaborate what do I mean by heirs, to provide for parents or senior citizens by way of a monthly allowance, right? So it is an obligation on the children. So yes, irrespective of how their relationship may have been, that is nowhere defined or nowhere the criteria for not being responsible for your parent. That's one of the major features of this law. Parents could mean not only biological parents, but also adoptive or step parents. That's how wide the ambit is when it comes to parents. Also, parents need not be senior citizens. If you see the name of the law as well, it has two aspects to it, right? There's parents and there's senior citizens. So senior citizens can include people who are also maybe not parents, who are childless, did not choose not to get married, but are 60 plus. So that's where their heirs come in, and the obligation falls upon their heirs. Whereas parents need not be senior citizens, right? There is also provision to protect the life and property of senior citizens and parents, right? In this law, we'll elaborate how that really looks like. So a lot of times we have seen how, like Uma's question was there, what if there is a gift deed? And, I have gifted out of love and affection to my kin about, a property that I thought maybe I will not be able to enjoy, maybe somebody else will enjoy. So for whatever reason, for tons of reasons, you may, out of love and affection, natural love and affection, that's what the law says, gifted a certain property. Can they misuse it later on to your detriment? If that is the case, then there is a provision to stop that from happening in the law itself. How does one do that? So predominantly, the law says that if the senior citizens, and there's a forum. I'll maybe specify the forum in a bit, but whichever forum you're going to, you have to mention to the forum that, look, I had gifted this to my kin in good faith. I had gifted it out of love and affection with the promise that this person will take care of my, at least my basic necessities, will not abandon me. Now, if I'm able to sort of put that across to the forum, then that particular deed can be declared as void. That's the extent to which void basically means not, not relevant or not executable, not legally executable anymore. To that extent it goes, where the forum can take an action. But I think Uma's question was a little bit more wider than that, where she asked that, what if they've already sold the property? So that obviously is a chance, but then that there is also provision to sort of give monthly allowances. So from that proceeds, whatever the sale proceeds of that particular property which was sold off, are you entitled, or somebody entitled, a person is entitled, a senior citizen, for monthly allowances or recourse to property? Yes, that can be a remedy for this particular situation. State governments also talk about, and interestingly, the duty of so quote unquote welfare of senior citizens is on the state government. So monthly allowance is something that, like as you can see on the screen, either children or heirs need to look into. But when it comes to welfare schemes like old age homes or access to hospitals, ensuring there is a infrastructure in place, medical facilities are provided. It's at a, it's a subsidized rates in terms of the test or medicines or procedures which are medical in nature, which senior citizens may require more than others. So in that sense, there is that flexibility, or given to, or has to be provided by the requisite state government. Um, Also, one interesting and one major highlight of this law is it supersedes all other laws. I'm just putting a food for thought here right now, and I'll be sort of, when I do some case studies, I'll be also sort of elaborating on what I'm saying. But it supersedes all property or civil laws. When I say it, I mean this law, which you can see on the screen. So any order passed by the tribunal, and there is a tribunal under this law who takes decisions, uh, that tribunal can sort of have complete authority over all property and money related decisions between the senior citizen parent or the children or heir, as the case may be, right? And a very sort of forthcoming part of this law is also the fact that it is intended to create a speedy redressal mechanism for the senior citizen. So even the tribunal, as we proceed, will be clearer. Does have powers of a civil court, but is not really a civil court. Mostly it's a subdivisional magistrate or a district magistrate level person or a district collector level person who's sort of getting into the nitty-gritties, doing an inquiry. There is a fixed timeline for it, which we'll get into in a bit. So the idea being that you are in a process which is not like a court or very legally driven, but at the same time is ensuring that both the sides are heard and there is justice given to both sides, or specifically for the purpose or for the persons whom the law is enacted. Are there any questions so far before I move ahead on this passage?
I just have one question.
Sure.
When you said that they are supposed to be taking care of you, should it be specifically stated in the deed that it has been gifted in good faith? I mean, is
Usually
there
it
a
is.
clause?
Yes. So usually it is. So maybe not in the deed, but somewhere in writing, if it's always advisable, right? I'm not, as a lawyer, going to tell you that maybe go by only oral assurances. If there is a tribunal who's going to decide that yes, it was with an understanding that basic necessities will be provided, that's why I gifted you, and because I did not have any means and I've done this in good faith, my advice would be that keep it in writing. Maybe if not on the deed itself, but in somewhere in writing.
Okay.
I hope that answers your question.
Okay, thank you.
No worries. Okay. Who all does the law cover? So it covers, I've sort of covered it, but I'll just maybe sort of reiterate what I said. There is a tribunal under to whom you have to make an application. There is also a format available for what the application should look like. So it's not like you have to put your head into it. It's Form A of the law, and it's very easily available. I can provide details to via Vikas also maybe after the session about the form in which you can make an application. So it's just like a form which you can just fill out certain details, and it has basic details right from your name, address, and everything to your well, your property details and what exactly are you asking for in reliefs. And it does not go into much of the details about the past relationship or your relationship or the if you want to elaborate, the space for that. But it's not a prerequisite, it's not a necessity thing that you have to highlight the atrocities in order to claim monthly allowances from your children or your legal heirs, as the case may be. Now, as I was mentioning, if the senior is childless and is senior citizen is 60 years and above, irrespective of whatever gender you belong to, the relatives who are entitled to inherit your property are also entitled to also provide for you during your life. But another major prerequisite for that is that if you yourself are unable to do it, when I say you, the parent or the senior citizen is unable himself or herself or whoever gender you belong to take or do not have sufficient means to look out for yourself, be it your medicine, food, health, whatever. Yeah. So this is another prerequisite that is very, very essential for you to even make an application before the tribunal. Okay, I will just proceed. Now, how can you take the record? So this is, I told you what and who can do it and what does the law predominantly entail. But the how is the major question, right? And that's where the crux of the matter also lies. How do I go about this, right? So while the law has around some ways of doing and the way of structured may not be able to, not everybody will be able to understand how what the law is trying to say. But what I've done is I've tried to make stages for your benefit as to what stages are there, and there are predominantly 3 stages. Okay, so the first stage would be obviously filing of the application, right? You need to firstly identify your tribunal. And how can you do that? By identifying the local district collector's office where you are staying currently or where you last resided, or where your children or relative, as the case may be, are residing or last resided, right? So if you notice, the jurisdiction, so as to speak, like they say in law, where can you file, is quite wide, and it's more looking at the convenience of the parent and senior citizen as well. Then the application, like I already mentioned, has to be presented in a certain format which is already present, and that application can be presented either by you yourself or through another person whom you've authorized, or through an organization or even whom you have authorized. So it's not necessary that you yourself have to go. You can also authorize somebody else. It can be a friend or it can be an organization representative whom you have said, okay, I can't go for whatever XYZ reason, and please go ahead and file this application on my behalf before the tribunal. Then just going ahead, then the application is registered and a notice is sent to whoever, against whoever you have lodged this application asking for monthly allowance, right? Any questions so far on the stage 1 part of it before I move to stage 2 and stage 3? You can also put it on chat in case there are, but if not, then I'll move ahead. Okay. All right, let's move ahead. Stage 2, of course, is inquiry. So, like I use the term, I'm using the term inquiry very consciously because, like I mentioned earlier, the tribunal doesn't follow a very strict legal process, okay? Because it has to be something which is friendly and accessible in a way. Friendly, I'm using for lack of a better word, but the idea being that it should not be another ordeal for the parent or the senior citizen, right? So before, if both the sides, that is, if the senior citizen parent or the children saying that, okay, let's not go for inquiry. Let's explore the possibility of a settlement. There is also provision for a conciliation officer who is present near the tribunal. So the tribunal knows who the relevant conciliation officer is and directs this particular application to the conciliation officer if both sides want to explore that possibility. And if better sense prevails and it is acceptable to both sides, that is the applicant as well as the person against whom the application is filed, and an X amount is decided that this should be the monthly allowance, then there is no need for going further, and that particular settlement will be acceptable to the tribunal itself and becomes similar to an order of a tribunal, although it's by consent of both parties, right? If, however, there is no settlement, so then the inquiry goes ahead and the tribunal may grant a monthly allowance. And even pending, so usually inquiries, the time limit for this inquiry is around 90 days. The 90 days starts from the date of the application being registered, right? So we saw in stage 1, there has to be a registration of the application. So from that day onwards, the tribunal or the district collector, who is acting as a tribunal under this law in that particular district, has to finish this process of inquiry within 90 days. Now it is still 90 days, right? And they may see you once few days, they may not see you on other days. They have their other works and all of that. But that does not mean you are without any remedy. There is a provision for even during the process being on, a monthly or an X amount or some amount being given to you in the interim stage, right? Are there any questions before I move to stage 3? Is there anything specific you want to understand in this process? Now, stage 3 is execution. Obviously, if I have, now I may, if I am either the applicant myself or if I am the person against whom the application is filed, there is a possibility that I'm not happy with whatever the order is passed. Then I do have a remedy in terms of an appellate tribunal. But if I have to be very, very realistic right now and practically speaking, I don't think there are a lot of appellate tribunals in our country. So usually what is happening right now is these kind of applications, if at all have to be challenged, they're directly going to the High Court, right? Now, after everything, if, okay, nobody's challenging it, now is a time where, say, amounts are to be paid. If amounts are not paid, application can be made before the tribunal and there is an imprisonment which is mandated. So if the person flouts on the order or chooses to ignore it or does not pay heed to, or pays one time, does not pay the other time and all of that, there is specific jail term mandated for that such a person who's defaulting on these payments, right? So and if there are any appeals and everything, that has to be decided within 30 days. As you can see, this is a very time bound process, right? There's a time limit right from 90 days to the appeal pending. Interestingly, though, there is no time limit before filing of the applications. It's not that, oh, because the person has, I have to maybe give in within 3 months. The reason is that, or any sort of time period in terms of giving the or filing the application before the tribunal. The reason is because it's something, it's continuing, as in if I have been deprived of my allowances monthly or a maintenance as the law states, that is something which is sort of continuing or recurring. So there is no time limit, or there is no within this much time I have to file this application. At any given point in time where I feel I need to take this recourse, after everything failing, I can take this recourse, right? Any questions before I go ahead? Okay, do you think a lawyer is required or should be allowed in this process? What are your thoughts on it? It's not a very legal process. You have to give an application for a tribunal, the person hears you out, that's it.
So it appears as though we don't need a lawyer for this process. It looks like
Okay.
it. We can just go ahead and fill the form and
Sure.
submit it. Is that
Sure.
correct?
Interesting. Anita, yes, you are right.
I
that is
don't
correct.
agree with that, because I feel when you use the word tribunal itself, you start feeling that there is something
Have a
more
mental
legal in the
issue.
whole
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
when you know that obviously you've gone to the tribunal because your dependents are not looking after you. So they might bring a lawyer, then who's going to sit and argue that?
Sure. That makes also sense. Okay. So both of you are right, and I'm not being diplomatic here. I'll tell you what I mean by when I say that. But any other thoughts on the lawyer part of things? Okay. So
No, I think also, not necessarily a lawyer, but someone or an association which has already handled such things.
sure.
That itself
Right.
would be a helping thing. That's all.
Sure. And if you see also in stage one, that is categorically option is given to the person, right? It need not be you yourself are filing it. You can do it through any other person, also an organization. In fact, I have not added that, but even the tribunal themselves can take, hey, look, we are seeing this, or they hear something in the news, and they say, okay, this person needs to take our recourse. Yes, GNU. Please go ahead with the question.
No, because a person who is well conversant with the procedure should be accompanied. It is my view,
Sure.
because most of the parents, though they may be knowing something, but at the particular point, they may not be in a position to convey what they wanted to convey exactly.
Sure. Sure.
So if a person known is taken, he will be in a position to explain to the tribunal. That is my opinion.
Sure, sure. So till 2016-ish, the lawyers were not mandatory. In fact, there is a very specific provision in the law which says lawyers are not even allowed during this process. So and that's for both parties. It's not only for the person who's making the application, the parent or the senior citizen, but also the children, kith and kin, against whom the particular application is made. But Delhi High Court stated otherwise, and it took recourse to, I won't bore you with the legal jargon, but there is something called as an Advocates Act, where where a lawyer, it came about in 2016ish, 2011, sorry, my bad, where it sort of gave leeways to lawyers to appear in any court and tribunal in our country. Section 30 was added. But so the Delhi High Court sort of used that and said that uh, the lawyers may not be mandatory, but that option should be given to the senior citizen if they find this whole process, which is quite simplistic, at least in the eyes of the law. But I mean, obviously, there are certain things that you might not have muster the courage, or the person may come prepared in a certain way, and things like that. Documentation, or you're not having health for health reasons or mental health reasons, because there could be tons of reasons as to why you might require some sort of help. So while the application, the part of it was very clear, but even the representation part of it, now after the Delhi High Court, and there's a similar Punjab and Haryana High Court judgment also, which sort of says that yes, you can take help of a lawyer if you want to. There is no disbarment as such. Is there a requirement? Not really. All right. In fact, interestingly, the law also provides for somebody called as maintenance officers. So, given it's not like the law wanted to leave the senior citizen and parents in a lurch and say, okay, now go and fend for yourself. They understood that there could be certain things that they might not understand or they might require assistance in. So there was also provision for maintenance officers specifically to help the parent and the senior citizens. I know of a couple of people who are in government authorities who are acting as maintenance officers, and they're doing some phenomenal work. Right. So again, not everybody has access to legal recourse, and lawyers in our country are not not really inexpensive. So again, that's an additional financial burden. But yeah, there is no requirement. But if there is at all something that you can swing, then there is no disbarment rules. Okay, I hope the aspect was clear. Okay. As I was saying, that it does not require to follow court process. And I don't know, are there any lawyers or people from legal background in the participants? Just by show of hands, you can just do a quick. Oh, perfect. Hi. Anybody else? Or people who have maybe visited courts a lot in their experience, their work experience. It can be just maybe not from legal background, but who've just been to courts a lot.
Yeah, I just wanted to know, is there any financial assistance if we at all, if we need to go to court? I mean, is there any free service available for senior citizens, or we have to go on paying the, all the fees which are necessary to be
Sure.
paid?
No, there are no court fees, if that's what your question is. There
Yes.
is no court fees. And like I said about the maintenance officer, so if you want any help or any help with the representation part of things also, a maintenance officer can also be allotted by the tribunal to you. That's how they help you.
Okay. So are you going to put some contact numbers or somewhere we approach,
Sure.
or?
Sure. For Karnataka specifically, you can let me know the districts. Maybe I can pull out that information because our country has a lot of districts, so I don't have for all of them, but I can pull out the information.
Yeah.
That should be good.
I think most of us are from Bangalore anyway.
Bangalore, yes, I remember that.
Thank you.
No worries. Yes, coming back to my question. My question was more specifically on, what is the perception of courts that people have? Like, oh, there's going to be a cross-examination. You have to stand in a court stand, and there'll be another side lawyer asking and bombarding you with questions, exactly how they show in movies. Well, it's not the case in this tribunal for sure. It's even not, otherwise not as dramatic as they show it in movies. But here also, that's not the case, where people will in a way ask you questions, and it's not direct questions, but it's more like an inquiry that the tribunal is doing, like I said. So the tribunal at best may try to ask some documents from you and things like that. But yeah, what they are supposed to ensure that both parties get equal opportunity. That is what they're supposed to ensure, right? Are they supposed to lead evidence and all that document jargonish, and there's something called as Evidence Act, and all of that is not really applicable to processes of this nature. Um, Now, here's the crux, and maintenance amount, so as to speak, does not sort of exceed or should not exceed 10,000 rupees. But there is a bill pending in the parliament, which has in 2019, it has reached the Rajya Sabha so far in July of 2022 is where that bill is at. And from whatever my sources, which may not be very correct, tell me, by the next 6 to 7 months when the parliament is in session again, there is a chance of this law being passed where this limit of 10,000 rupees is going to be eliminated, right? So the maximum amount till now is 10,000 rupees, it will be eliminated, as well as making provision for providing of monthly allowance basis the standard of living or the income of the children. So, right, it should has to be something that accommodates and in tandem with the standard of living that the senior citizen or parent is accustomed to. So that is the way the law is headed right now. As on date, it stands at 10,000 rupees. But having said that, it also provides for other food and shelter. So your monthly maintenance is also to your shelter part of things, right? So if there are instances of people driving somebody out, can the tribunal stop that and pass orders for stopping that person to, forcefully drive out the senior citizen or the parent out of the house? That is also an option which is available to the tribunal. There have been very specific orders which have been upheld by the high courts of our country. I'll get into that in a bit. Actually, I have specific questions on the same. Anything so far before I move on to my set of questions, which I'll pose to all of you basis whatever information I have provided so far? Okay. Okay, so this is more like, don't worry, this is not an exam or assessment. This is just to ensure that so far whatever we have covered, it's something which is absorbed by everybody. But also, if you have to apply this, or how much you can apply and understand the application of it, is where I'm trying to sort of assist all of the participants today. So my first question would be that what if, and this is also very similar to what we've already discussed. Um, Parent and senior citizen already gifted the property to the children. And like I mentioned, I won't spend too much time on it because this is already covered previously with the question asked. But yes, so it can make these transfers null and void. And interestingly, just one point I would like to add here is that only for gift deeds which are after 2007, right? So if you have given a gift deed before that, or any transaction that happened after that, this law might not be in a position to cover that. Okay, moving on to the next question. Okay, what can the children refuse? What will happen if children refuse to give maintenance? Are there circumstances within which the children can refuse to give maintenance? What do you think? Under what circumstances can they refuse? It can't be. I will just maybe repeat Hima's question again, which she asked in terms of the past relationship, which are very sour, or you never took care of me when I was a kid. Why should I take care of you? So again, not going into the moral and ethics side of it, I'm just leaving it at that. But where is what do you think? In what circumstances? And there is a chance where the children can refuse to give the monthly allowance.
If the income of the children is not sufficient to meet their own requirements,
Mm-hmm.
at
Okay.
that time, how can they pay assistance to the elders?
Okay. I like that. It's an interesting answer. It's an interesting response. Anybody else who would like to add in?
Supposing the son himself dies and the son's wife is alive, is she supposed to look after the in-laws then?
Oh, that's an interesting. I'll immediately answer that. No. If the son is alive, then no. Just saying.
Okay.
Anybody else would like to take a jab at this?
So what happens if the children have been given an adoption to someone else in the initial stage itself? Does the child has to look after adoptive plus the birth family, parents?
Very interesting question. Okay. Can I hold on? Can we hold on to this question so that I really like this question? Can we hold on? Let me just take this one and let me just finish this slide and then I take this question up.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. When my question remains though, JNU says that when the children do not have any sufficient income, or their income is so less that they can't even take care of themselves, and what will take care of the parents? Yeah.
Or if the parents are earning enough, I mean, the source of income is sufficient to cover their maintenance.
That is correct. So not the fact that the children are, as long as the law goes by the standard and by the logic that if you're an able-bodied person, you can push yourself and you are obligated to maintain your parents or your senior citizen relative who you are a legal heir of. So you can't say that, oh, of course, the proportion on the amount of the maintenance granted may be or will be rather in proportion to the monthly income. And in fact, the law is very categorically clear that it cannot exceed the monthly income, and anyways can't exceed as of now till 10,000, right? But it does not say that, oh, because you chose to remain unemployed or you are unemployed for whatever reason you chose or otherwise, if you're an able-bodied person, if you meet all the requisites of this law, you have to maintain, you have to give a monthly allowance as mandated by the tribunal. That cannot be an excuse. But yes, if you can prove that they have more than sufficient means and recurring income, which they can use for their own benefit, then there is no obligation on the children or the legal heirs to take care or provide for monthly allowances. Yeah. And
So,
what
Sana,
if? Go ahead.
question. Supposing parents are also having some old lady in the house, say father, sister who is unmarried and maybe 90 or whatever.
Yes.
And then the children are supposed to look after only biological parents or also that lady who was always there in that house.
That lady is related?
Related, like father's sister, suppose, who is unmarried.
I have a specific case study on that, Hima. Just hold on. I'll answer that. It's a good question. Okay. What if, Uma, I think raised your hand. You want to add something?
Yeah. I just, I had actually this experience. Or the son was earning quite a lot. Okay, it's not that he was not earning. The property where they were staying, the son and the daughter-in-law and the grandchild, originally it was a gift, or it was like when it was sold, the family property, they put this particular apartment to their son, but it was the mother and the son's name, the title deeds, the registration
mother
was
and the son's name. Okay, understood. Yes.
No right about it, or even the grandchild, right? So now he is earning well. he will go and put that whatever his earnings are in mother's joint account, their joint account. Then claim that he has no money, he has nothing to provide for that. The wife has to go and work and fend for herself, and even for household expenses. He was a bit smart. So what do we do in that case? I come across many times when I do my community work.
Sure.
So now what does the wife do?
Interesting. So you're saying that the person can show and how misuse can also happen of this law in a way?
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yes.
hear you. I hear you. And I'm not denying that it pains me to say it, but yes, there are ways of misusing this law, but does not mean you stop using this law. That's point number one. Point number two is that yes, he is providing and obligated to provide for his mother. There's no two ways about it. But there is also obligation to provide for his wife if she's unable to maintain herself. And that cannot be, so it may affect or impact the amount, but not the fact that he's still obligatory. I'm being specific to the wife here, not the mother, right? To answer your question. So the amount of it may vary because as per, other laws, and I don't want to confuse people here, but just saying that as per other laws, it's usually 1/3 of an income that a wife is entitled to, like a domestic violence or other laws in the country, mostly women centric. So yeah, so so only thing I see impacted in all of this, Uma, is the amount, not the fact that she will be entitled for some monthly allowance. I hope that answers.
Okay, so that means she really cannot claim anything if he is not giving financial assistance or,
Is she being the mother or the wife?
the wife.
Wife can definitely claim, is what I said.
Mother and the son, the property.
Got it. But she can claim from the share of the son and from the income of the sons, not from the mother's income. The mother is not entitled to take care of his wife. The son, whose husband he is, has to take care.
Correct, but we don't even know how much the son is earning, no?
There are, okay, so again, sorry, we are digressing a little bit. Maybe I can come back to this question towards the end. But I feel even if you don't know, if there is a Supreme Court judgment called it's called of Rajesh versus Neha. Okay, if time permits, I will maybe highlight certain things of maintenance and how it's decided for wives, especially.
Thank you.
Right?
Thank you.
Maybe let me, if time permits, then I can go into those integrities, even if there's no proof for such income.
Okay.
Right?
Thank you.
No worries. So what will happen if parent includes, parent being the applicant under this law, includes one of the child and excludes the others? Say the parent has 3 biological children but chooses to ask maintenance from only one. Can they do that? कि तुम्ही maintain करोगे, the others will not. How does it work? How do you think?
Shouldn't the share be shared equally by the children? If he has 3 children, should the 3 children share the maintenance equally if they're all earning?
Okay, are you asking me or are you telling me?
I'm telling, shouldn't it be like that? I'm asking
Okay.
you a question.
Okay, you're answering my questions. I'll take it as okay because there are 3 children, so they should be equally paying off. Okay. Anybody else?
Supposing if there is an EMI, monthly,
Oh,
by
yeah.
they have got an EMI to pay the parents, which generally doesn't happen, but it may because they might have invested in something and expecting the child to continue EMI. So is there an onus on the child to continue to pay the EMI or because if the parents are unable to pay at some time or the other?
Interestingly, not in the cases that I have dealt with so far, but I don't see a disbarment because ultimately it's about the shelter of the person, right? If the EMI of the house is of the house in which they are staying, and if if the child is capable to take care and incur that, I don't see it anywhere where the law says you can't pass this. Monthly allowance is one thing, but even the shelter has to be taken care of, right? So I don't see a problem there. There's a specific judgment also on this. Uma, if you just hold back, I'll just display the judgment in the next slide.
Oh, lovely, lovely. Thank
Okay.
you. A lot of them are very believe, Sana, on the.
I'm sorry.
A lot of them are like mortgage the property where they're staying. So as I told you, yes, it is in the mother-in-law and the son's name. The grandson was also staying there. and they're done mortgage or something like that, and that interest has been mounting and they've not paid the interest.
Achha. Right, that's how EMIs work. They mortgage on a property. That's right. Got it, got it. Uma, I think this question will be answered hopefully in the next one where I display that judgment. Yeah. Okay, coming back to my question, what do others think? Maybe you can put your responses on chat quickly so I can
So
move
I
on.
think, Sana, that all children should be equally responsible, whether it's a boy or a girl, first of all.
Correct.
And if others are excluded, then the one who is included can file a complaint or, go to the court saying, please add them also, probably.
Perfect, Hema. That's the correct answer. So yes, in fact, the law says not equally. The law says proportionately to their income. So if one son is earning say 20,000, the other is earning 1,20,000. The law says it should be in the proportion of the income, and the children who are not included or the heirs which are not included, that heir who is included can plead for the other heirs to be included in this application as well. So that, hey, look, I am not the only one liable. There are other people also going to take benefit of the property, or are also biological children or adopted or step, as the case may be, and please include them also. And the law allows the person to do that. Yeah. Okay. Any questions so far on these aspects before I move ahead? Okay. As I was mentioning about the property part of things, right? And there are all of these.
Sorry, Sana,
like
one more question over there, that earlier one. Suppose if some of the children are staying abroad and taken the citizenship also over there, are they still can be forced, or they have to be Indians?
That's a good question, Hima. But yes, they can still be called before the court. And there is a specific provision for that as well, that they can be called and say that, okay, there's a process where you have to, just give an application through an embassy or as per the central government. Now, I think whatever the rules are, yes, I have done service through email. So sending an email is also good enough, good service, right? What becomes a challenge though when kids are abroad or are citizens of a country which is abroad is execution of this order, right? You may take orders, but the kid is abroad. The kid is out of the jurisdiction of India. And to execute that order will be unfortunately a very big thing for the senior citizen. It's unfortunate, but that's how it is. However, it's not that it's impossible. So you can, we all know about the Ministry of External Affairs. You can, because you're a senior citizen, you can go and take recourse to them. And if the Ministry of External Affairs is really doing his job well, I don't see a reason why they can't reach out to the requisite government and try and enforce that order. It will be difficult.
Sorry, Sana. Do you take an order from the tribunal and then go to the MEA and then forward it to the consulate? Then they do implement
That's right. That's right. So then that's an attempt that you surely should make. And being a senior citizen, I think that leverage is also given in a way, for sure. Okay, are there any more questions? I hope I answered your question though.
Yes, very much.
All right. Okay, there's a question on the chat. Since daughters now have equal rights on property, does the responsibility of parental care also devolve on the daughter and son-in-law? Yes, not on the son-in-law, but on the daughter for sure. Married or unmarried, doesn't matter. If she's earning or if has income, then yes, the obligation is there. Okay. Also, I want to just highlight one thing. In our country, mostly property laws or inheritance laws are based on the religion of the persons, right? So there is something called as Hindu Succession Act. There is the Mohammedan law. There is there's an Indian Succession Act, which is for Christians. There's a Parsi Succession Act, which is for Parsis, right? So depending on whatever religion you belong to, those laws will be applicable to you. And that's also my next case study, which I want to put forth. But as for I'll just be specific right now to maybe the Hindu Succession Act, where the Hindu Succession Act says that there is something called as class 1 heir. So if I'm a married woman, then my class 1 heirs would be my husband and children, right? And if I'm a married man, same thing. My wife and my children, my class 1 heirs. What does that mean, class 1? That they are the first one entitled, and first one are the only ones entitled. If there are no class 1 heirs, then you go to class 2 heirs. That's how the entitlement works in our country so far, right? I'll just go on to this case study. So actually this should have been animated, but anyways, so Sarita is unmarried and childless and above the age of 60 years, stays with her brother and his children, V, who's a minor, and J, who's a major. The house is owned by her father, who passes away without any will. The brother and children refuse to give her food and threaten to throw her out of the house. What can Sarita do? The answer is also on the screen. And in fact, interestingly though, not and where she can claim, because now Sarita, let's understand the situation why it is the way it is. Sarita is unmarried and childless. So then who is she going to sort of, or whom she can claim for maintenance is her heirs, the legal heirs. Legal heirs in this case being the brother, right? Now, in further, if her father has passed away without any will, that means who are the class one heirs of her father if the mother is not in existence, or mother, and here we'll assume that the mother is also no longer in this world. So in that case, it will be the Sarita and her brother will be entitled to the father's property because they are the living children uh, of the father who died without a will. And are they now? So that means she has 50% rights over that house in which the brother is living along with his children, and over and above which, if there is no maintenance she's getting, or she doesn't have any source of income, then can she even ask from her brother and her major sort of a nephew in this case? The answer to that question would be yes. Does that make sense? Because the nephews also, the nephew will also be entitled to her property once she passes away, if she's still childless by then. In fact, any threat of abandonment also that we see, abandonment of any form, abandonment basically means just leaving the person somewhere in an undisclosed location where the person does not want to get away, or just abandoning at a where the person is not in a mental state to understand the whereabouts. That's actually a criminal offense punishable to up to 3 months. And if the tribunal or somebody in the vicinity or police takes notice, they can report to the tribunal, who can take action on their own against such abandonment. Right? So that's how the law is goes so far. This is mostly for senior citizens. Any questions on this before we move forward?
No.
Okay.
Very clear, actually. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, now Madhu's husband passes away without any will. They do not have any children. Madhu and her husband do not have any children. She's staying in her husband's house. Can the husband's sibling drive Madhu out? So
No.
the answer is also on the screen. Yes. Yeah, go ahead, Sudha. Are you saying something?
No, he cannot, obviously, because she's also entitled to the property. So
In fact, she's the only one entitled to the property.
yeah, yes.
Because she does not have, although there is no will.
Children.
Yeah, she falls in the class one heirs under, we are assuming that Madhu is Hindu. So as per the Hindu Succession Act, this is what is applicable. It may change, but depending on the religion of the person that belongs. So you'll have to take recourse to that as well, for the property rights as well.
So anyway, can I ask you one question over here?
Sure. Go ahead.
When you say class one heirs, when you're talking about a spouse, when either of the spouse passes away, either the husband or the wife, is the property to be divided equally between the wife and the children, or does it first pass to the spouse and after she passes away to the children? That is not very clear.
No, that's a good question. I'll tell you what. So it's mostly to the spouse to whom the whole property goes away, if it's a living spouse. Okay. And if the spouse is no longer there, so say father has passed away, it goes to the mother. Mother passes away, then it goes to the biological child.
Okay, that's clear. That's clear. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, and interestingly, though, on the point of the property issues that usually come out, unfortunately, that's very rampant. Where that hey, look, I had invested in this much, so what, and you had gifted me the property, or my father wanted me to have the property, and you are part of the property, and all of that jazz. So in this very case that you can see on the screen right now, the Bombay High Court said that where the quick facts of the case were that it was a joint property between the husband and the wife, and the son and his family were staying in one portion of that house, and for a lot many years. He had also paid a lot of money to acquire and make changes and to extend that portion of the house. right? But the property per se remained of the parents, like, and the father had passed away, the mother was living in 50% of the house. And he said, how is she living? And she cannot, maybe she can take 25%, but I need to live and move in with my family. The court said, nothing doing, you cannot drive her out. Under this law, there was the tribunal asked them, so sort of, to vacate the premises, saying that this whole premises in fact belongs to the mother, and it is for her safety and security. You can fend for yourself. And also went ahead and sort of frowned upon the atrocities that he had put, and asked her to, sort of brought her to court, and up to the high court this matter was contested. Interestingly though, the court did not exceed the 10,000 amount that is mandated under the law. The tribunal had granted around 25,000, as well as asked the person to vacate. In this case, only the vacation part was allowed, and the possession of the flat was handed over to the mother, but not the maintenance amount was reduced to 10,000 rupees. So that's how the law stands. And this is a very recent court case where it was 20th October 22, as you can see on the screen, to be specific, is when the Bombay High Court passed this. Okay.
Sana, one
Yes.
question.
Yes.
Supposing both the parents are no more and they did not make a
Hmm.
will and they have two sons, and afterwards, as you said, ideally it will go to both the sons. But one son says that I gave all the money to purchase this property that time. So he claims that it should be only mine. Is it possible?
किसके नाम पे है? Whose
नहीं,
name is it on?
नाम पे तो पिताजी का था, अभी पिताजी गुजर गए.
So
And
ideally,
wife-
without any will,
Without
it will
any
go
will,
to the
yes.
mother
Without-
directly.
It will go to
Go to the mother directly. Yeah.
mother, but now mother is also not there and two sons are there.
So now it will be equally divided between the
Yes,
children.
but one son says that while buying this property, I had paid all the money, I had financially helped and all that. So it should come to me only.
And no, if there is no will, then no.
And
Doesn't
suppose
matter.
it proves also by
Doesn't
showing
matter.
old checks. or
Doesn't
whatever.
matter. Doesn't matter. The
Doesn't
law
matter?
is very clear.
Okay, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, I want to answer Sudha's question. I don't want to miss out on that question. Sudha, please, if you can, if I can correct me if I'm wrong. Your question was that what if the child was adopted, sent up for adoption, but is also biological child of some other person, right? So
Yes.
say X was his mother and Y adopted the child. Is that
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Okay. So then who is he liable to maintain, X or
Yes,
Y or both?
exactly.
That's your question?
Yeah.
I love this question, but I think I'm not, why the law sort of gives this wide ambit, but I have to think of it logically right now. And for me, it could be the last relationship, the last legal relationship. So if the adoption has happened legally, my logical mind says that it is Y who the child will have to maintain. Y is the adopted parent, not the biological.
Okay.
Because
So
it's a
which-
legal adoption. So the last
So-
relations, the last legal relationship
Yeah.
would prevail over the previous ones.
So by that logic,
Hmm.
the property which belongs to the biological father, he will not be entitled to anything then.
May not be, because the adoption is this. But you know what? I want to come back to this. I don't want to give an answer which,
Okay.
which is this. Like, I want to maybe like research on this a little bit more, Sudha. It's a very good
Okay,
question.
sure.
So just made a note of it. But I don't want to give an answer which I can't sort of, does not hold water. So I'm
Okay.
not 100% sure about my answer as well right now.
Invariably,
So-
you'll see that quite a lot of in the older days at least,
Hmm.
the one brother or sister will give in adoption because his other brother doesn't have kids, and
Yeah.
so they give the child on adoption to
Yeah.
the other person.
So that's why I'm using
Invariably.
legal adoption, right? So adoption is the process also in
No,
our
it's a
country.
legal adoption because afterwards the child, even in the school records and all,
It's
will
in
show
everything.
the adopted parents
Exactly.
as the parents.
Yeah. Yeah.
They don't show the biological parents.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I'm just wondering what happens if biological parents had
Possible.
property and everything else. What happens?
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. I would like to see. I come from a criminal law and a gender law background. I
Yeah, okay.
have a very like a surface level understanding of obviously the property laws
Okay.
in our country. I'll be very upfront. So, but having said that, I think this is a good question. I don't want to answer something that I'm not
Sure.
100% sure of.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, all right. We'll go ahead. So, are there any other rights or remedies available to women and to senior women? Now, while if and interestingly, like I mentioned earlier, the Maintenance on Welfare of Parents and Senior Citizens Act of 2007, the act we're discussing so far, is overriding all other laws, right? But I may choose to not take recourse to that law. I may choose to take recourse to other laws. And what are the other laws? Is I'm a woman in this country. Are these what you see on the screen right now? While right to equality, education, and work are my constitutional rights, they are not something which is gender specific, right? Everybody is right to equality, but the right to equality also has a certain exceptions in our constitution. So there is exception if there is, so everybody is equal under the eyes of law, but some are considered rightly or wrongly and debatably vulnerable parts of our society. They being women, children, and senior citizens also come in that category. And hence, if you are, and hence there can be specialized law tilting in the favor of such vulnerable parts of our society, right? So while everybody has a right to work, everybody has a right to education, right to equality, but can an extra leeway be given to these vulnerable parts? The answer to that question is yes, and hence we have specific laws for women, children, and senior citizens, right? One such law is, of course, the protection of women from sexual harassment at the workplace, where the law says I need not be an employee of a particular organization to file a case against another employee of the organization who has sexually harassed me, where I had gone for any work. And say, I'll give you an example of, say, as a person coming to deliver food from Swiggy, and if the Swiggy personnel has harassed you, unfortunately, and if you're a woman, it doesn't matter of any age you might be, you can write back to the requisite committee of Swiggy saying that your employee came to my house where I ordered food and has sexually harassed me, so you please take action. I do not need to be an employee of Swiggy to take or initiate action against this law or under this law, right? Of course, we spoke at length about the Hindu Succession Act and how even married and unmarried daughters have equal rights in the property of their parents. There is something called as Domestic Violence Act, which is again a women-centric law, but what it totally does is it also, like, the similar things that we saw in say under the Act of Senior Citizen that we just saw. It's very similar to that, but it does not override the other laws. It is in addition to laws, but it has remedies like maintenance. There is no upper limit on maintenance. There is also injunction. There is protection that you can claim under the Protection of Domestic Violence Act, right? So there are tons of things, and even injunction in terms of property and everything, like you can provide new alternate accommodation. That's a recourse that you can take under the DV Act. And there is no age limit for women to file under this DV Act, right? So you can choose whether you want to explore the maintenance under the Welfare Act or if you want to undergo DV Act. But DV Act is more like a court process. It happens in magistrate courts. It's not happening before a tribunal, as is the case in the Maintenance and Welfare of the Senior Citizens Act that we just saw, right? So, but these are some of the other laws that you should be aware of. Any questions so far?
Just a quick other thing. So when you said the domestic violence, you go under the regular code.
Yeah.
But if it's against a senior citizen, as a senior citizen, I can go to the tribunal.
Definitely. So that's a choice that you will have. Why is the choice? Because the Senior Citizen Act overrides all the other laws. It's not in addition.
Okay.
Right? Any other questions?
It's easier to go to the tribunal than to going to a court of law, is it?
I would reckon yes. Yes,
Okay.
for sure,
Okay.
right? Because you don't have to go through the whole process. It's a process. I won't mince my words when I say this.
Okay. Clear, yeah.
And you need for sure lawyers in the DV court.
Yes, true,
Yeah.
true. Yes, okay.
I make it sound such a bad thing to be being a lawyer myself.
But people are afraid. People are afraid of
unfortunately.
lawyers. They're afraid of courts. That's a fact. There is no.
That's
getting away from
true.
that.
That's true. You can't do with or without it. Yeah, I hear you.
How is the implementation? I mean, okay, you get an order from the tribunal.
Hmm.
Is that much more effective than going to court and getting, especially when it's under DV?
I'll tell you what, I feel I have practiced now since when is the act is in since 2005. I've been in practice since that the act is been in place. And I think I can tell you with this with some amount of responsibility, and I think the DV Act process is much more cumbersome when I have to draw a comparison to a Senior Citizens Act, because my access to a tribunal is much more faster than what it is to a magistrate who has like 10 other things to do. Right?
No.
So I think from the execution part of it and enforcement effectiveness, I would maybe advise to go under the maintenance of Senior
No,
Citizens
what
Act.
I meant is where the police station or anyone else has to come forth to actually execute the order given to you.
Yeah, you can. So there are these maintenance officers, right, that we spoke
Yeah,
of
that's
under
what.
that
Yes.
law. So yeah, they can reach out to them and say, can you please help me go to the police station, and
Okay.
I want to enforce my maintenance. Right?
Okay.
So
Right.
yeah, that can happen.
Thank you.
Nice. Any other questions?
Were there any questions that went unanswered in the chat box?
Yes. Not that I can see, but I may be wrong. Just looking at it. I have the chat box open in front of me. No, Anita.
I think we mostly you've covered everything.
Sure. Okay, so I'm just on the last couple of segment of my presentation, Anita. Can I go ahead?
Please.
5 minutes more.
Please.
Okay. So there are, I mean, Vikas is doing a phenomenal job in terms of the work that I have seen them doing. And there are other organizations and NGOs also, and whose links and names you can see on the screen. You can take a picture if you want. If you yourself require some assistance or know of somebody who may require the assistance, please feel free to sort of go to these. And these are not somebody that I recommend, honestly. But I mean, because I've not personally worked with them, but I know they do some amazing work, because I know few people from all of these places whose name I've just put on the screen right now. Well, they are all trying to do phenomenal work, and I hope they are successful. And if there is any assistance or any help that can be provided by these NGOs, so I think you must take recourse to it if it's required.
There is also Elder Line. They
Okay.
have a helpline. Yeah, 1 2 3 4 5 6 7.
Yes.
They have a whole bunch of services. You can call them up and they can help you, whatever your problem is, specifically for senior citizens.
Right.
It's a government thing called Elder Line.
Okay.
I think most of you must be knowing about it because it's been widely publicized.
Right.
Okay.
For those in Bombay, I just want
No,
to
it's
highlight
India
one
wide.
thing.
It's India wide.
I got it. 1 2 3 4 5 is India
1 2
wide.
3 4 5 6 7. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That's
So
something I'll take.
they provide all kinds of services, and they advise you how you can get help, whether it is abuse or whether it is economical help or any legal help. They help you with anything. And it doesn't matter what your income is, they will help you.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
So two things I want to highlight on that note, what Anita just highlighted. Firstly, legal aid in our country is free, is available to women, irrespective of their income. So if I'm a earning person, earning in gross maybe, and still I want to take legal aid, I can take that. It'll be a process, but nonetheless, it's available. That's a right that you have. You should know about it. And secondly, in Bombay, there is a line called as 103 for the cops. So usually it's 100 that we dial, right? I know it's very effective. 103 is for women, children, and senior citizens, and they come in record time. I would have not recommended had I not seen it myself, but it's amazing. Like within half an hour, they are at your door. There are special vehicles running around the city. So it's fantastic, that line, and I have seen help being reached out immediately. So it's an effective one. So you should be knowing about this as well. Okay. And this is my last sort of a slide. I think always prevention is better than cure. I'm a strong believer of that. So I know, and I'm not for a minute saying, please do not trust your legal heirs or your children, or do not entrust any of your properties and all of them. It's important to do that. If it's out of a natural love and affection. But I think it's important to be smart about it. I'll give you a very personal example. My mom said, she has a flat in her name somewhere. And my mom said, Sana, I'll put it in your name. I said, why? Today it acts as a security for you. Your father had given it for security, and if tomorrow my mind changes and I mean, you don't know, human minds may change, right? Or you give it to me or my brother, it will be my property. So can I misuse it? Yes. Does the love and affection go down because of her not transferring it in my name? Absolutely not. Right? It's also it requires a little bit of good judgment. It does not make you any less of a parent. If you do not in your lifetime give up your properties or your securities to your children, right? In fact, they will understand that it's important for your own security. I think the awareness part of it, I think I've covered. I hope if there is any
Yes.
other legal, sort of assistance or any information that you want, I would strongly recommend not going to Google. I get a lot of people who have already Googleified, and there's a Google University out there where people just go and take information from and then throw these really, really weird, absurd questions at you when they come to you for legal advice. So again, please do not use Google for legal and medical advice. Strongly against it. Go to the requisite professional for consulting advice, and there is no stigma. There's no stigma, and like Anita correctly mentioned, going to court, we won't be able to show face in the society, nothing like that. Even reaching out to mental health professionals, I think mental health in our country is now gaining a lot of tool and existence, and I think rightly so. Firstly, if your mental health is in place, you can go places, right? So it's important to not shy away or not think, am I crazy to go to a counselor or a psychologist? In fact, it's necessary. Just as you would go to a physician for any sort of, when you're sick, you go to, physically sick, you go to a physician. Similarly, we all have mental health, I won't say issues, but a mental health uh, problems, or sometimes you just have something which is not okay and you're not feeling okay. It's always important to talk to somebody, right? And it's never too late to start anything, and I can just give you anything. With this group of people, I feel that you already have so much of wisdom, so many years of experience behind you. I think I would want to come to a lot of advice about life experiences, if there is if destiny sort of provides for it, you never know. So I think you should take a lot of pride in that as well. Okay, so I think this is just my 2 cents on how we can sort of prevent and maybe self-help if possible, to avoid, firstly going to the courts as
But
nobody wants to.
one question, how does one avail of free legal aid? I mean, how does one go about finding free legal aid?
Sure. So there is something called as National Association of Legal Services. It's called
Okay.
NALSA. There
Okay.
are, if you just type, the only thing I would ask you to Google is legal aid. Okay, and you will immediately get awareness, or you would immediately get the numbers in your
I
state.
see.
Right?
Okay.
It's very
Okay.
that easily available on your fingertips.
Okay. Okay. So it's that easy. I see. Okay. Okay. I think this Sudha has some question. Is it?
Oh,
She's
yeah.
raised her hand. One last question. Sudha, please go ahead. Sudha, you can unmute yourself, please. Hello, Sudha.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, please. Yeah.
It is just a small inquiry, because in Bombay, property is by way of only it's a share certificate. That's all. Unlike properly in Bombay, in Bangalore and Chennai.
Right.
Okay, it's just a share certificate which is given to you.
Right.
So when earlier people were just nominating their wife as the nominee, so that the flat goes to the nominee. Now the court has, the law has changed, and so the nominee is just holding it on behalf of the actual legal heirs.
Right.
So what happens when there's no will saying that the property will go to my wife? Because it can go to the children also. It is not like earlier.
Sure. It can go, but usually, like I said, and then it will be dependent on what religion you belong to, firstly.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
So if it's as per whatever religion, the class 1 heirs are applicable. So if that person has died without a will, then it goes to that particular heirs, be it the spouse and then the children, or be the spouse and the children, depending on whatever religion. In Muslims, I can say that it's a very, like, it depending on what sect you are.
Yes.
There are also other, like, there are a lot of percentages, like Shias and Sunnis have different percentages and all of that. It's quite a complicated one. There's a whole chart to it. So that's why I'm not delving upon it. But yes, you'll have to take recourse to that law. You have to go and refer to that particular law to understand if a person has died without a will. There's another word for it if the person has died in estate. If whoever's
it is
person has died,
okay.
yeah. I get a question on the chat which says that if the will is registered, write a will register for the acquired by me. So you can will out all your properties, except for Muslims who can only will out 1/3 of their properties, the entire properties. But all the other religions, as far as I know, can will out the entire property, not only jewelry, and it is not mandatory to register your will. It's not mandatory. Okay, I think we have crossed the time of 5:30.
Yes,
So I will
yes,
just
yes,
maybe.
yes. I think there was one question that was there earlier that if your spouse passes away, do you have to re-register the will after you've inherited the
No,
property?
no,
You don't have to. Okay.
no, the registration is not mandatory.
So if there is one last question, we can take that.
Sure, of course. I'm okay.
Anybody? Or we can wrap this up today. Okay. So anyway, I'd like to thank you, Sana, for a very informative and very energetic session, I would say. I think you answered the questions as we went along, so that was very much easier. And so as in the chat box, if you want, we can get in touch with us. Our legal consultation, our first consultation is free, and you can WhatsApp us. It's there in the chat box. Thank you all so much. Thank you, Sana. Really, really good. We'll be putting up this webinar sometime next week. So if anybody wants to refer back to it, you can log into our website, which is called viavikas.org. I just want to inform everybody, next month we'll be having a webinar on Parkinson's. I think many of you wanted it. So anyway, thank you so much, Sana. Thank you, everybody, for a very, very informative session. Thank you, everyone. Okay.
Thank you. Bye.
Yeah,
Take
thank
care.
you. Bye-bye, everyone. Bye.